Roger Dubuis are a brand of watches you hear of very sparingly in the watch world. They are in the high horology category of watches and they're a smaller player, and naturally this alienates most watch enthusiasts from the brand, mainly because of the price and also because they're a smaller brand. Most of their watches have a really striking and slightly brash design to them, and they are filled with sharp edges and patterns. The watches are also larger in size. In fact, they don't really look like hot horology or high horology in pictures and videos, but when you have them in hand or in person, or you even take a look at that case back, the movement finishing, then it's pretty clear. In this video, I want to go over a couple of things. Firstly, why nobody buys Roger Dubuis. Secondly, we're going to take a look at some interesting things about the watch here. This is the Roger Dubuis Pulsion chronograph. And thirdly, I want to cover why they're perhaps conditionally underrated. So why does nobody buy these watches? I've come up with 4 reasons. Striking designs, large dimensions, including the thickness, of course. The thickness seems to be quite an important factor in high horology watchmaking. The price. Fourthly, I think there's a lack of cohesiveness in the model lineup. When you think of Roger Dubuis, you don't really have any specific watch that comes to mind. You just have these cool designs that come to mind. Okay, so now let's get on to the watch in hand, the Roger Dubuis Pulsion chronograph. So this watch has got a 44mm case diameter. It's about 51 from lug to lug, and it's close to 15mm thick. Fairly thick. But what's cool about it is, of course, well, the design. But as soon as you take a look at the front of it, you notice the bezel and crystal. That's the first thing that at least I noticed. And the cool thing about this bezel crystal combination is that they're one and the same. So essentially the bezel is the crystal and it's sat on top of the case. Now when you take a look at the side profile, apart from that magnificent looking case, you do notice this stacked bezel crystal combination. And it is really cool. I think that's pretty sublime. I haven't seen that in any other watch so far. But what's actually notable about this watch? Let's go over some of the specs. I'm just going to cover certain things that I find most interesting about the watch, what appeals to me the most. So the first thing that appeals to me is the micro rotor. I love micro rotors in watches. Not just because you can see the rest of the movement really well, but because I think the rotor itself looks pretty cool, and I think there's more effort to design a micro rotor and make sure it works equally well as a full-size rotor than just a regular full-size one. Now this movement, this has got not just a micro rotor, but it's got a chronograph, as you know, and it's a vertical clutch column wheel chronograph. Now the thing about column wheel chronographs is they're so much nicer to use in terms of the tactile feedback when you get when you press the pushers, and the way it works also with the vertical clutch arrangement means that the chronograph hand can always be running without actually damaging the movement. So it is, in terms of chronographs, a superior movement technology. It's nothing new, it's been there for decades, but still not all chronographs come with this, and it is to be appreciated. The case design and finishing is sublime, well, particularly the finishing of the movement, because as you can see, this is a Geneva hallmark movement. So that means that it's got a really high degree of finishing, and you can also see that, and you can even see the perlage visible through the front of the dial because it's skeletonized. Now the case design itself, it is so cool. I like all the facets of the side flanks of this case. I like the way the lugs are structured. I like the way the strap integrates. Would it look good on a bracelet? I think not. I really don't see this watch going on an integrated bracelet. I think the essence of this watch is captured by the rubber strap sportiness, and I think this is how it's intended to be, and this is how it should be. The movement itself runs at 4 Hz, 28,800 beats per hour, and it has a 52-hour power reserve. Now these things are not that relevant. This is not a new watch, so you're not really expecting some really cool or super high power reserve or new tech with the movement. This watch was made in the late 2000s. The Geneva hallmark and the finishing is what is to be highlighted, along with the micro rotor and the vertical clutch column wheel chronograph. So what do I not like about this watch? Actually, it's the dial. I'm not the biggest fan of this dial, and perhaps you're not either. Otherwise, this watch would be quite a bit more popular than it is right now. Now, what's the issue with the dial? I don't really like partly skeletonized dials. I don't mind fully skeletonized dials, but these days you really have to do something special when you skeletonize a watch. Otherwise, it actually looks a lot cheaper than it would look with a standard dial. The hands seem kind of out of place. It's very silver and it's kind of hard to read. I like the shape of the hands, but it's a bit too much when it's also skeletonized. White and this silver skeletonization, I think it doesn't pair too well. Now, this watch is criminally underrated in terms of pricing on the used market because it goes anywhere between 12 and 15,000 US dollars. And for what you're getting, for the Geneva hallmark finishing, for the rarity of such a piece, Roger Dubuis don't make too many watches, and not too many people even know of the brand, but they do everything to such a high standard. And at that price, I really do think this is extremely hard to beat. Now, why does nobody really buy Roger Dubuis? And seldom few even know about Roger Dubuis. The first obvious reason is price. These watches at retail are so incredibly expensive that it would alienate most people from even considering it, and thus is shortly forgotten. If there's one thing you know about pricing in this high horology sector of watches, you can price something at literally anything. Take a look at RM, for example, and it will sell, but only if you can market it that well. So marketing is kind of more important in hot horology than the horology aspect. If the watches turn out to be worth less than half their retail price when used or when sold as used, then nobody is going to pay the retail price going forth. So the real problem is the inability to market the watch as something deserving of its retail price. And these days, some independent brands have been able to do that, but Roger Dubuis hasn't been able to do that quite yet. And so, still, when people look at their watches at retail, they think it's kind of ridiculous. But then the same kind of person would look at another watch, maybe from Patek or AP, and think the price is justified purely because the watch kind of holds its value. Then you don't think too much about whether it's really a deal or not. A Geneva hallmark movement is great and can objectively be appreciated by many, but that is not the sole consideration when someone is willing to spend ridiculous amounts of money on a watch. When there are others in the industry making more appealing watches, even if they're less complicated or lack certain technical superiorities that Roger Dubuis may have, they might still be a better buy. I think Roger Dubuis has really bold and eclectic design. This obviously doesn't gel with everyone, and their watches are also quite large, so that also alienates some of the public. I also feel like none of their models are understated or subtle, and the lack of cohesiveness in the lineup or the lack of connection between one model range to another means that most people shopping for these watches can't really do that within the brand of Roger Dubuis. They can pick one particular watch and compare it with another watch of another brand, but they can't look at it within the same range. So, for example, if you take a look at Rolex, you can really see the connection between each one of their model ranges, and you can actually cross-shop multiple watches within the brand because they kind of wear similar to an extent, and they have a lot of similar characteristics and just certain design elements that are different. That whole thing does not apply to Roger Dubuis. If you're buying a watch from this brand, you have to really like that one particular watch, like how it wears on your wrist, and want that one watch. And if you're unsure, then you're just going to look at another watch from maybe AP, Patek, maybe something else. So despite all these small disadvantages, why are Roger Dubuis still quite conditionally underrated? Well, they're underrated for the watch enthusiasts that is particular about what they like and what they want. And if you're after features or if you're after high horology, then this is such an easy way to enter that if you like the design. And the fact that the price point on the used market is relatively low compared to the other, well, at least the big three high horology brands and other independent brands, it makes it so much more accessible for someone not yet in high horology to jump into it. I'm assuming Roger Dubuis at their ADs or boutiques offer discounts. I'm not sure, but at least looking at the values of the watches on the grey market, they really should be offering sizable discounts at their ADs as well. So this would be a factor that makes them conditionally underrated. The condition being the chunky discount. And if that is not the case, then you can have it at the grey market for a chunky discount.